it's been a while. And I say that completely fine with it. I think, or I know that there's a past version of myself who would really judge and guilt and shame myself for not showing up for weeks or months or having like a specific dedicated content plan. And I'm just so far beyond that I don't care. And also, I truly believe that when I have something to say, like that's what this platform is for. I don't want to have a platform that I just like try to have something to say just so I can hit publish once a week. You know, it's kind of ironic because I was sitting in meditation earlier this week and sitting in contemplation and just like general reflection. And I want to show up more in my business. I feel it's time. Earlier in this year, I wasn't really sure when or if that was going to happen. And I can feel it, but it feels different in a really good way. However, while I was reflecting, I had this thought where I wanted to have like weekly themes around what I talk about and kind of like talk about that theme on the podcast. And then I would gear my Instagram content around that, and maybe I could write something about it. And I actually did record a podcast around the theme of ease, and that was going to be my focus this week. And as soon as I recorded it, I was like, ugh, I really don't like this idea. It felt like shackles. And even though I do really want to show up and I do have things to say, I have learned that if I am too structured, I resist against everything, which brings me to ease. And what does ease mean? Ease doesn't necessarily mean that something is easy to do or like quick or with lack of effort, right? But ease is the act of something coming to fruition without resistance. And of course, this is probably the goal for many of us, whether we are consciously aware of it or not. Like, we don't want to make our lives harder than they need to be. But typically, the natural human response is to make things harder than they need to be. We apply meaning to what that person said or how they looked at you or what their actions were and what that says about you. Or you hang on to old emotions because you're just not like ready to let them go. But if you can observe something and just be where you're at and just allow whatever comes without giving it a specific identity or a specific meaning or placing an emotion to it and just kind of letting it go by, can you see how much easier that would be? If someone has an opinion of you that you don't agree with, right? Does that opinion that someone just offhandedly gave you, does that make that truth? Because if you're reacting to it and if you're upset about it, some part of you believes that that is true. And then you don't want to let go of it. And then maybe you want to have a conversation with them. And maybe you want to make sure that everyone that they talk to doesn't also agree with it. And you need to talk to them to make sure that, no, actually, that's not me. This is me. But what if you were just like, oh, they said that thing. Okay. That doesn't make it true. And I'm going to move on. And just by me saying that, I know you can sense the energetic difference of those two scenarios, even though they are literally the exact same scenario. One was built with resistance, and the other one was built with ease. So take some time to examine in your life where you might be resisting, where you are making things harder than they need to be. Maybe you're adding steps to a process because you think that if you don't do A, B, and C, the outcome won't be this big, amazing thing that you think it should be. But what if you could have that same really good end result by eliminating B and C? Because why not? Does it really matter if you spent 2 minutes on a reel or an hour? People aren't going to know. People aren't going to care. They're going to see it. They're going to think something about it. They're going to scroll on by. It's not going to matter. Literally happened to me earlier this week. I wanted to share a channeled message on the podcast, and of course you need visuals if you're going to share it on social media, and so I was trying to fiddle with animations in Canva and get the timing right and decide how much of the message to share and how does the transition work, and was literally working on it for 2 hours, and I posted it and I was like, I hate it. I don't want to do this, and I deleted it. And I started again, and literally the thing that I decided on and finalized and posted took me less than 2 minutes. And I was like, yep, it's fine. It's fine. The time you spend on something does not matter, especially in something so fleeting, especially social media where it's going to live. Obviously, it's going to live for a while, but the visual life of seeing something in an organic feed is not going to be long. That's just the plain truth of it. The shelf life is just not there, and that's okay. And I've also been learning about Buddhist meditation. And one of the key themes in Buddhism is this idea that nothing is permanent, right? Nothing stays the same. And you've heard the saying that everything changes, but also there's a vast majority of people who believe that no one changes, and I full-heartedly disagree with that. In Buddhist meditation, they teach you about impermanence, which again is this idea, this concept that nothing is permanent. Everything is changing, everything is fluctuating. And they gave this example of if you just focus on your breath alone, something as simple and as little as the breath, it changes every few seconds, from the inhale to the exhale. And maybe as you relax, it slows down. Or if you go for a run, you can feel the speed increase of the inhales and the exhales. And then if you begin to examine anything else in its specific impermanence, the tea that you made this morning, it starts piping hot at 200 degrees. And then time goes on and it starts to cool. And if you leave it until evening, it's room temperature, maybe at 72 degrees. And if you leave it longer, it will start to mold, and the mold will grow and fester and branch out and get bigger and bigger. Every single state on this earth is impermanent, which I think is so freeing. I can't help but contemplate and be in awe of the possibilities. And also the other end of the spectrum where nothing matters, but in the best way. I can wear this today because it doesn't matter, because I want to, and who cares what anyone else will think, because how I will be tomorrow will change, and how those other people will think tomorrow will change. Everything changes. Even the stationary statue I have of the Buddha in my living room, offhandedly, you would think that that wooden statue, it just sits there, it doesn't change. However, it collects dust. The wood dries out. The dust builds. The color fades. Even if I don't touch it, it is changing. Even though the wood is no longer living, it is changing because of everything around it and the change that is happening within all of that everything. And so this concept of ease might seem a little tricky, because how can you follow the path of least resistance? How can you be in ease when everything is changing constantly, when everything is impermanent? And all I can say is, how can you not be? Because everything will change. How you're feeling will change. You're feeling really angry about a situation. And what a permission slip to be like, oh, this will change. I can let this go because tomorrow the situation won't be here anymore because that's tomorrow. The present has already changed because I've had this realization that it doesn't matter and I can let go of the issue. I can choose to stop resisting that it happened. I can live in ease. And I was brought back to my work, of course, as a healer and how I market myself. In business today, you can't just be a healer. You also have to be the social media manager and the content planner and the producer and the creative. And, I was thinking back on just a few days ago when I had decided full-heartedly that I was going to have themed weeks and I was going to show up every week and make all the things. And now I don't want to do that. And like I said, there's a part of me, an old part of me, that could have judged my inability to stick to the plan. But there is a new part of me, especially in this lesson of impermanence, that can ride the wave of my inspiration. My old ways of working was very structured, very concrete, very follow the strategy or you will fail. Do it this way or you will fail. Show up this many times or you will fail. Have this many likes or you will fail. And all of that is just resisting. And it's also not subscribing to the idea of impermanence. When you follow those strategies so concretely, you are denying the impermanence. You're denying that everything around you is changing and evolving, including yourself, which just adds to the increasing resistance. And I'm sure someday I'll have more structure within my business and my content creation and how I show up, but I don't foresee that happening until I can actually hire help to do that. And I've kind of needed to come to terms with who I am in my work and allowing the knowing that I have about myself, where I don't like to plan my content out even a week in advance, let alone a month in advance. Because the creative spark that I have as a manifesting generator just isn't there if I can't do it in the moment that I'm feeling it. It's not there. And then it just feels like it flops, right? The heart of me isn't there if I am creating in forced kind of restrictions, in this forced idea that I have to do it a certain time and way. And so this week I've really been examining how I can still show up really authentically, but in a way of ease. And showing up in ease when I want to. And giving myself compassion with that easeful nature regarding my needs to do it this way. My want to do it this way so I can truly feel free in my life and my business. So I don't feel restricted and tied down and all the things. If I feel those things, it only is wrapped in these feelings of I'm not good enough. If I feel like I have to do it a certain way, it's because I don't feel like if I do it any other way, it won't work. And so I've been embodying this mentality of no matter what I put out there, if I do it when I feel good and when I'm inspired, it will land the way that I need it to land with the people it needs to land with. And that's how I can live in the most ease right now. It's embracing my need to be impermanent, literally. It's embracing my need to only work when I feel inspired and to talk about what I want to talk about without being strapped down by a weekly theme. It's embracing the fluidity of my very nature. And so as you take this episode with you, the words that I've said, into your days and week going forward, I want you to take some time to reflect again on where you're resisting. Where are you resisting the change? How are you making things harder than they need to be? How are you resisting your very nature? Where are you resisting your growth? At the very start of my healing journey, I was very sick. I was very unhappy with my life, and I got introduced to Louise Hay. And she doesn't necessarily talk about impermanence by any means, but what she does focus on is mindset and how your mindset can keep you stuck exactly where you are and in turn create physical illness. And it was through her teachings that I learned that I was resisting when I felt good, which seems so silly now, but I really resisted when I felt good because I thought I was only worthy of love when I was sick. I think it's the first podcast episode, or the second, if you want to hear more about that story. But you can see how it just takes one belief system that you either learned or picked up from your experiences that can keep you from moving forward in your life, that can keep you resisting and stop you from living in ease. And I would say that the starting point when you're examining what's happening in your own life is to start where things feel most uncomfortable. How are you hanging on to that situation? Are you holding a grudge? Are you determined to let everyone know that you are still really upset about that thing? Are you determined to stay the same and put your foot down and not make changes that are necessary just out of sheer stubbornness? Whatever it is, how are you resisting to impermanence? Because if you are, you're probably really uncomfortable. Maybe you're anxious. Maybe you're overwhelmed. Maybe your life feels chaotic. But what you are really doing is resisting a life of ease.